The Franklin Heights poster illustrates the most popular home in the neighborhood, the bungalow. It was a universally popular design in the 1920s, a decade of intense building activity in the neighborhood. They're not the only houses, but line virtually every street in the community.
You can always tell when an area developed by the housing stock, and you can always tell where the farmland ended by the housing stock. You'll have these little enclaves like Franklin Heights that have all small bungalows for the most part. And then you go just north of Capitol Drive and you find newer houses because that was farmland up until that point.
Franklin Heights is a small neighborhood compared with some designations. Only a quarter mile on each side from Capitol to Keefe, from 20th to the sprawling vehicle frame plant along Hopkins. It was a growing farm region in the mid-1800s.
Franklin Heights, like most outlying areas, was farmland, and many of the men who settled there were Germans. The Germans came over here many times looking for farmland, and they didn't really have to go what we consider very far. At that time, that would have been quite a great distance out of the city. As the farms developed, they began to grow produce and fruit to supply the city. And they needed to move those produce and fruit into the city, and so plank roads were developed. Teutonia Avenue being one, and Hopkins being the other. As the roads moved out, then the railroads started moving out, and as the railroads moved out, industry followed. A.O. Smith had started in a small shop in Walker's Point, and as they began to expand, they moved out to Hopkins near Capitol.
A.O. Smith, now Tower Automotive, was the largest Franklin Heights employer in 1910, turning out 100,000 car frames a year. With this major employer, Franklin Heights attracted many newcomers, and the neighborhood was settled to Capitol Drive by 1930.
By 1930, they were employing 6,000 people in their factory, and those people needed a place to live, and so houses began to be built. And when people had houses, they began to say, well, I would like sewer and water, and eventually, piece by piece, that area got annexed to the city of Milwaukee. And by 1930, it was part of the city.
Tower Automotive is still an important neighborhood employer with some 2,000 workers. But several hundred jobs could be lost with the move of a truck line. Local churches reflected the German character of the new community. Siloa Lutheran Church is the oldest church established in Franklin Heights. Franklin Heights in the 1950s and 60s became home to many members of Milwaukee's African American community who had been displaced by urban renewal and freeway construction. Emma Hinkle, currently chair of the Franklin Heights Residents Council, has lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years.
When I first moved into the neighborhood, me and my husband and my one son, there were homeowners, homeowners that really took pride in their neighborhoods.
At one time, Franklin Heights was among those areas of the city with a very high percentage of home ownership, and Emma would like to see it that way again.
Home ownership is a concern because when you have homeowners, people work together, they take pride, because when you got a homeowner, you know who lives next door to you, and you know that person cares about their house.
An organization closely tied to Franklin Heights is Neighborhood Housing Services. Since 1985, this private-public partnership has provided financial counseling, improvement loans, and other assistance to upgrade housing in the neighborhood. Housing and crime issues are important here, as are concerns for more opportunities and services for seniors and young people.
There's no place for them to go to do things. In my day, which was way back in the 60s, we had social centers and things like that. Nowadays, we don't have any place for our young people to go.
Franklin Heights is in many ways like other neighborhoods in Milwaukee, a blend of old and new working together to meet new challenges.
The hope for the future for Franklin Heights would be that people would take pride in their home, regardless if they're homeowners or just renters. They should be happy about the home that they live in and take pride in it. They should just really do something about it. Just don't feel like it's just a place for me to live, but I want other people to come through this area and say, oh, those people take pride in their homes, and we would like to live there.
Well, I think the best way to be absorbed by this exhibit is simply walking in, and it will absorb you. There's no two ways about it. If you look, as you can see, any kid who walks in here is just completely wide-eyed and the rest of it. So I don't think there's a problem of how to best do it, other than to take it slow, I suppose, and pretend you're in a tropical forest.
Visitors find themselves in an environment where these rainforest butterflies can thrive. The constant hissing sound is the result of a carefully controlled climate, with a system that maintains a temperature of 80 degrees with 80% humidity. The $6.5 million edition opened in May. Museum President William Moynihan got the idea in 1995.
What we were looking for is something that reflected the strength of this museum, and we have one of the great butterfly collections in the world, about over 250,000 butterflies in our collection, and a whole series of curators over the years who've done research on butterflies, and yet we didn't have a butterfly exhibit. So we said, why not? So we came up with this idea of let's have a butterfly exhibit, and as sort of an extra hook, let's have a live component.
While butterflies are the main attraction, the wing also features double glass walls which act as a humidity barrier and sound cushion. They also satisfy federal law, working to prevent the non-native species from escaping into our environment.
The real importance of these butterfly houses to me, as somebody who's spent a lot of years of my life working in tropical rainforests, is the following, is that it provides an opportunity or an arena for people to really appreciate at least one aspect of biological diversity. So for example, during the course of this year, we will have cycled through, it'll depend on the seasons where we, in the tropics where we get these from, but we'll cycle, people will be able to see over 100 species of tropical butterflies through here. And just the awe of it is very nice. But at the same time, the kick to me is to watch kids, and they're the real people. They're the ones who are the real audience. And those kids, I look at them as incipient biologists, and this may be some formative experiences for some of these kids. And for the people who are adults, the same, because I know I've talked to many people who have actually never seen a live butterfly or noticed one, maybe in their backyard once when they were a kid. So as an educational tool or arena, I think butterfly houses like this are a first step to actually appreciating a greater biological diversity.
The exotic butterflies come from such places as Malaysia, Costa Rica, and the Amazon. The exhibit is designed to be a butterfly learning gallery where you can track its life cycle from chrysalis to flight.
We get these butterflies as pupae, and they're hatched out, they're born in this place. Those pupae come in, and they're stuck on those rods, and then they're born in there. And the ones that are hanging off there are simply, they're expanding their wings and drying their wings. And after the wings are hardened, they can fly, and of course, then we release them in here.
Corporations, foundations, and individuals provided half of the funding, but it's a living memorial to Milwaukee banker and philanthropist Jack Puelicher and his family foundation, and wouldn't have happened without him.
But was like a small child in his enthusiasm for butterflies, and a real naturalist, and wanted to know more and more about butterflies. And he managed to have the Puelicher Foundation give us $3 million. And without that backbone gift, and it was a backbone gift, we would not have gone forward.
The museum's highest one-day attendance record was set during the 1997 temporary exhibit, and the permanent wing has also attracted many to the museum.
Oh, it's been overwhelming. Just in attendance alone, we had over 78,000 people in just the month of May. Our attendance, our membership went up over 1,000 people in 1 month time period. That's unheard of. But even more important, people are enjoying it. They're going through the butterfly garden, the live component, and then spending a lot of time in our educational component. And we have a series of things. We have interactive computers where you actually can meet some of our scientists and see what kind of research they're engaged in. You can find out the difference between a butterfly and a moth if that turns you on. We talk about the evolution of butterflies and their role in the ecology, and we also talk about endangered butterflies and environmental changes that are affecting butterflies. So it's a whole story that's told in here.
Learn how to build a garden that will attract butterflies. Youngsters can stick cloth pieces into fabric forms to learn how scales work on a butterfly wing. They can find out why the wings are colored the way they are. The butterfly wing is open during usual museum hours with regular museum admission. Officials say it's another example of what such a facility means to a city like Milwaukee.
Well, certainly the museum and Discovery World are part of the educational fabric of this community. We're part of the social and educational fabric. But think what we do economically, too. We bring over 1.1 million people downtown. People come to this exhibit, but it's only natural. They stay, they go to the IMAX theater, they go see the streets of Milwaukee, they go through the rainforest exhibit, and they make a day of it. And it's just wonderful.
Cooler, paper plates, hamburger, hot dogs. You have a lot of things at a picnic, probably including a group of assorted microorganisms. Treated improperly, some foods can be health hazards.
Potentially hazardous foods are usually high-protein foods like meat or poultry, fish, anything with dairy products like milk or eggs in it. So that would include all of the things that you put on the grill, plus some of the salads that you make.
Keeping the hot hot and the cold cold is among the major rules for food safety at your picnic or backyard barbecue. Keep your hands clean. Avoid cross-contamination.
Cross-contamination occurs between different types of food, and it occurs between you getting something on your hands and putting it on ready-to-eat food. So hand washing is important because if I'm out playing with the football or petting the dog or playing on swing sets, I want to be sure to wash my hands because I don't know what I have on my hands from those objects. I also want to pack all my perishable foods in a cooler with plenty ice. The more full the cooler is with ice, the better, because it'll stay colder. I want to take my raw foods, my meats, my poultry, my fish, anything that is potentially hazardous, and wrap it really tight in plastic so that those juices don't drip on my vegetables or my salads or any fruit that I may have packed in there. Those are the juices that will contain the bacteria. There could be salmonella or E. coli or campylobacter. And when you cook the meat or the poultry, you're going through a kill step. So you kill the bacteria and you don't ingest it. If it drips onto an apple and my child takes the apple and bites into it, there's a possibility that there will be enough bacteria on there that they'll get sick.
It's a good idea to have separate coolers for food and drink, and don't use the ice from the food cooler to chill your drink. Once the food is out of the cooler, there are other precautions.
A very important thing to remember is that when you grill, the food turns brown rapidly. It looks like it's done, but it's not done. The internal temperature may not be up to the point where the bacteria are killed. So most people should bring a thermometer and use this thermometer in their home and when they're out at picnic grounds. The temperature you want to take is ground meat, ground turkey and ground chicken, 160 degrees. Steak or roast, medium rare would be 145. medium about 160. Whole poultry should be cooked to 180, just so you know that all the parts of it are done. So I want to keep my salads at 40 degrees, I want to keep my meat at 40 degrees, and then after I cook the meat on the grill, once it's up to its temperature, then I want to hold that at 140 degrees. And you can do that by just taking the cooked meat and putting it to the side on the grill top.
And other precautions: completely thaw meat and poultry before grilling. Use the refrigerator. Microwave defrost only if the food will be grilled immediately. Marinate food in the refrigerator and don't reuse the sauce. You've got control over what you barbecue, but what about all those food festivals around town?
Every weekend in summer you can find a city inspector out checking everything with their thermometer, making sure people have hats on, checking for sanitary situations, that hands are washed. We go to all church festivals, we go to all the festivals sponsored by groups at the Summerfest grounds, and any street festivals.
Symptoms of foodborne illnesses can range from a mild upset stomach to cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, chills, or fever. Foodborne illnesses can be serious to the young, old, and those with immune problems, and should be reported to the health department. You can take foods to your picnic that don't require refrigeration, but follow some simple food safety rules and you won't have to worry about some bacteria spoiling your picnic fun.
Safely, usually the rule is, if I put out a buffet, I can leave potentially hazardous foods and salads out approximately 2 hours at room temperature. At that time, it should either be put away in the refrigerator or discarded. If I'm in a picnic situation and I have food out at 90 degrees, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and when in doubt, throw it out.
On this neighborhood poster, the Victorian Gothic North Point Water Tower, completed in 1874.
The city of Milwaukee needed to bring water into the city in order to be used for firefighting, which was a big issue, let alone drinking water.
So the Milwaukee Waterworks built a power station on the beach below St. Mary's Hospital. Water was pumped up the bluff to a reservoir.
With the machine, it was a pulsating kind of situation, and the pipes of the time could not stand the pulsating. So you needed a standpipe, which is on the inside of that, to go up and down and relieve the pressure on the water system. So there's really a big iron pipe that's in the middle of that, and obviously a big metal pipe wouldn't look very good.
The city decided to enclose the pipe in a fancy limestone exterior, seen here in a photo from around 1890. The tower remains today, although new pumps installed in 1908 made it obsolete. It is now merely ornamental. The North Point we know today was formed around the turn of the century by many of the city's wealthy residents. From Windsor to Newberry, the lake to Lake Drive and Downer, with names like Pabst, Blatz, and Schuster. Villa Terrace, now an art museum, was built for the son of A.O. Smith. His neighbors were Gustav Pabst, the son of brewer Frederick Pabst. He may have chosen the location because his sister, Marie Pabst Goodrich, already lived next door in this castle-like residence, said to be a wedding present from her father.
My house, the house I'm in, was built by Boak, who had many businesses, and also he was an alderman for this district, and then for a good number of years, and also an alderman at large.
The Frederick Boak home on Terrace Avenue is a Milwaukee landmark and a National Historic Place. The only home in the city designed by Frank Lloyd Wright for a specific client. It's one of the few remaining examples of his imperial period.
The scholars tell me when they come that it's most reflects sort of the Japanese quality of any of his work. He has sort of a hidden entrance, so when you come up, even the ceiling is high and the space looks larger. It's all open space, which was very unusual in 1916. And of course, there's brick in the interior. Nobody had brick in the interior in 1916. And Wright wanted to open the box, and you can see that there's an extension where the flowers are just It's basically a rectangular house, but they're an extension to give that sense of space.
For the most part, North Point retains the residential character which once also existed on Prospect and Downer Avenues. Current residents hope it's preserved.
We have a nice neighborhood of people who really appreciate the quality of these homes. So that's very special, and I think we all like to have a memory of from where we came.
North Point was an endangered neighborhood in the 1950s and 60s as many old line families moved out. In 1973, the Water Tower Landmark Trust was established to maintain the quality of the neighborhood.
There wasn't quite a view of maintaining for historical purposes, but times have changed, and currently people come back into this area and realize the quality craftsmanship that went into these houses. Each of these houses was designed by an architect to reflect the specific desires of that owner.
St. Mary's Hospital opened in 1858 as the poor, not the rich, were among the first to live here. A school for what were called frontless girls opened in 1875. In 1887, the Milwaukee Orphan Asylum was established. The social service agencies that remain work with the neighbors to preserve the character of the area.
Various members of the neighborhood who have some experience in these things made some suggestions about building materials and some changes, and they were incorporated into what the Protestant home is going to do.
Public works projects like the North Point Lighthouse, built in 1855, also shaped the neighborhood's appearance. It was moved 100 feet west to its present location in 1879 because of erosion. Lake Park, another major public improvement, was designed in 1890 by the architect who also planned Central Park in New York.
If you're a city person, we're 5 minutes from downtown, so I don't spend much time on the expressway. The quality of urban living, beautiful. It's wonderful to walk here. All the architecture is beautiful. Every house is very characteristically reflects the builder's taste. And so you have quite a range, but you also have terrific interiors and construction because we had the German craftsmen at that time. So there isn't a house in the area. You may not like the architecture, but the quality is terrific.
I think a lot of times in terms of history, people don't know how we got here or why we got here. And I view part of our job is to maintain and show the architecture of this fine city of ours. I mean, these are the people that built the city and built houses to reflect their style, and by maintaining these houses, future generations can get a better appreciation to our fine city.
Fine homes, fine views, and a prime location on the east side are North Point's enduring assets, and residents are committed to preserving those assets for future generations.